on the Organon in like 30 minutes.
No
So I'm
worries.
gonna hop off, but I wanted to say hi and get the recording and join. And so thank you.
Fantastic. Oh, you're super welcome. So, welcome everyone. We are going to talk about detox today and why it might be a good idea at menopause, and occasionally why we might want to be cautious, and go a bit slow, or ask some advice. Actually, there's a couple of situations where I would ask advice as well. So, I'm Caroline Gaskin, and this is my lovely colleague and friend Fiona Eady.
Hi.
Nice to be in the same space again. Feels like ages. It's only just pre-Christmas, isn't it? But now we're at the cusp of a new year. It's a time when lots of us think, okay, what do I want to let go of? What do I need to let go of? What served me well through the last year, the last several years, etc. And so, it's quite natural really for us to think about those things. Although a lot of people say, don't start too soon and why start early? I actually really, really like these winter months to begin to let go of some stuff and set new intentions. And, I find that active detox can be really, really helpful. So that's general. But when it comes to menopause, we've got some kind of specials, I guess, and, special reasons why that might be a good idea. So Fiona, should we just jump straight in, and what led you to look at detox around hormones and menopause specifically?
Yeah, a few weeks ago, I suppose it was about a month ago, Caroline and I were here discussing Christmas and what Christmas was going to be doing to our hormones, and predicting the red wine, predicting the mince pies and the Christmas cake and the sugar and the late nights. And yeah, I did all of that. And I think even when I was in it, I was just thinking, right, January's coming, and what changes do I want to make? And I could see as well, I am, for those of you who don't know me, I am in late perimenopause. So I am in the phase where my hormones have now dropped to the perfect level, because I don't need huge levels of estrogen because I'm not cycling anymore. But also where I'm very vulnerable to hot flashes. And I was predicting hot flashes. And because I was messing around with my blood sugar so much, was eating at weird times, the alcohol that was really impacting my sleep. And I knew it was going to happen, but it did happen. So for those of you that experience worse menopausal symptoms over Christmas, I think it's really clear to all of us that our bodies are very sensitive at this life stage, that we react to things very quickly, and detoxing can really help that. So it's the start of a new year. It's exciting. As Carolyn said, these quiet months are really useful. We've got time to plan. There's not much happening. We can get the things in that we need to do our detox with. We can, stock the fridge accordingly. There's time, really lots of time to take stock in these months. So I think it's a great way. We've got the time, and then it just sets you up so well for the rest of the year. It's really laying the foundations for your health in the rest of the year. And I just feel there's a way of doing it, though. Menopause, we don't want to be bringing in more restrictions, negativity, depletion, denial. That might have been a pattern that all of us have experienced growing up, in dieting, over exercising, and that's really not our pattern here. So thinking about a detox at menopause, you're really thinking about ways of doing it that are very nourishing, that are very healing. And with my clients, the first thing I see with my menopausal clients, I often see women that are very overloaded. Their systems are overloaded. Things are sluggish. Things are congested. There's lots of heat. There's lots of sweating as the body's trying to detoxify because it's so toxic. And there's a couple of reasons for that. There's a couple of reasons why at menopause we really need to detox, and that this is a great opportunity. And I think the two big reasons are, one, that we've been exposed to inadvertently, accidentally been exposed to a lifetime of endocrine disruptors. Those are chemicals around us, or things in our food or in our water that are disrupting our hormones. And when we get to menopause, we've had 40, 50 years of those. And they're there sort of in our bodies, and they're interfering with our natural hormonal balance. So detoxing is so helpful for understanding where they are and clearing them out. And then the other thing I see with clients is that those really important organs, the bits of our body that do all the hard work in detoxing, they've been working so hard for years, so the liver and kidneys especially, that they've congested and sluggish. So when you detoxify, those organs renew, they get a new lease of life, they get a new spring in their step. And there's that sort of immediate benefit round about looking better, having more energy, having more vitality, and also having better and much better balance of hormones, because those organs are doing such a lot to break down your estrogen and excrete it safely. So yeah, it's a fantastic time to detoxify, and it creates such a big shift in symptoms. So the first thing, I'm going to do when I get a menopausal client and I see that lifetime of, toxicity that's resulting in the low energy in many of the symptoms, a detox is going to be one of the first things that I recommend. And yes, I thought for today's talk, that would be our inspiration to share with everybody, because we know that all our friends are thinking about detox at this time of year. So we thought we'd share some of our tips and guidance around how best to do that in menopause, and what some of the benefits that you're going to be able to see are.
Yeah, I think also there's an aspect that I talk about, which is that the liver is doing a lot of extra work, because as we get these fluctuating hormones, and it's trying to establish balance, we might get surges of hormones. I was listening to a talk with a woman on Diary of a CEO, and she was actually talking about dopamine, and she was talking about an addiction, and her addiction that she had. She was an addiction coach or psychiatrist of some sort. But her addiction was reading porn novels, and how excited she got by reading porn novels. And I was like, I'd love to know where her testosterone levels were at that point in her life, because she was in her early 40s. And I thought that is absolutely classic for testosterone, for instance, to be raised at that point in your life, and for sex to be more exciting perhaps than it has been. And I see this in a lot of clients, and so that, yes, thanks, Helen. Sounds so Mediterranean. She's just popped in there a homeopathic remedy, but absolutely, we see is surges of hormones, and then those need to be processed by the liver. So I was thinking, we can get even surges of testosterone that could manifest as rage, or driving yourself very hard physically, and that all then needs to be processed, and the organ that processes that is the liver. And not only has it done a lot of hard work in its lifetime, and the good news is that the liver cells regenerate within 3 days. So whatever we do that enhances the liver, you're going to see quite fast action. So when Fiona and I talk about something like dry skin brushing and hot and cold showers, chances are you're going to feel much better if you do that every day for 2 weeks, just by virtue of creating some stimulation to the lymph system, and thereby encouraging, as long as you hydrate, encouraging the liver to do its work more efficiently. So that's just a sort of tiny step in the right direction, as a potential solution. But the other thing to kind of understand, as Fiona said, is that our organs have been doing this work for a really long time. So it's so different to our teenage years. Well, there might be patterns of how we are as a teenager that show us how it might be in our menopause. So I definitely had flashes of anger in my teenage years, and felt frustrated and want to get out into the world and get going and not be hampered. I was quite kind of driven. So not surprisingly, those things came up at menopause, but that was 40 years later. And those organs that have been doing the processing are not only congested, but they can also become weak. So particularly if the kidneys, adrenals, ovaries are becoming weakened by life, especially by trying to be pregnant. So that could be, lots of pregnancies, successful or failed, lots of pregnancy attempts at pregnancy with IVF, for instance. Those situations exhaust those organs, and when those organs are weak, and we talk about adrenal burnout or something like that, then it's like the energy of kidney and liver separate. So we've got this opportunity here to listen to that and bring those organs back into sympathy with each other and to work synergistically so that we feel of beneficial. So detox isn't just about stopping something, it's also about recognizing organs that are weak and nourishing them, and so there's that sense of letting go and then regenerating, resetting, and so the word pause can actually be really helpful at this, as Fiona said, at this time of year, to just stop, slow down, think about what it is we would like going forward and what we might need to take with us.
Yeah, and I think there's that element of detoxification that's about our bodies, around about reducing the amount of toxicity that we're exposed to, particularly in our homes and our workplaces. So there's a big piece there around the two big groups, phthalates, xenoestrogens. So phthalates mess up your testosterone and xenoestrogens mess up your estrogen. And both of them are going to have an impact onto every other endocrine hormone in our bodies as well. And phthalates, I think this is a great time, while you have time, to walk around your house, go to the bathroom, open the cabinet, and start looking at the back of the bottles and seeing what you've got in there that is an actual hormone disruptor. Now, fair enough, these things are incremental and they build up over time. But why on earth would we want to carry on using them when we've got 30 more years, when we need our hormones, 40 more years, 50 more years, when we need our hormones to be balanced? So phthalates are in products like cleaning products. So when you spray a cleaning product, those phthalates can stay in the air for up to 4 hours afterwards. They're in body creams, deodorants, shampoos, all these things where we're applying them directly to our skin and they're absorbed into our systems. And then xenoestrogens, those are everything where you see BPA and where you see BPA free. So we've got this new story now. So my kettle broke. I'm buying a new kettle and I bought a plastic free kettle because I thought I do not want hot water to be drinking hot plastic. I don't want the lid to be plastic. And I inadvertently ordered one that had said plastic free, but actually was BPA free. So in that case, they've replaced the BPA with another compound unnamed, probably BPF or BPS. And these are just as toxic. These are cause just as many problems for our hormonal systems. And it's so frustrating. And the same with like tins of beer, those sort of soda.
Tetra packs. I'm against Tetra packs. I'm like, what? They're lined with plastic. We're storing food which has been warm. If it's warm when it goes into that, it will release even more toxins.
Yeah, so we've got this kind of, it's like, some kind of computer game trying to dodge these products that we need in our lives and we love, but trying to actually buy one that is an honest product without an endocrine disruptor in it. So that's a lovely piece of work, I think, that we could all do in the early months of the year.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really, I actually listened to, because I've been decorating, I've been listening to lots of podcasts, and I did listen to somebody talking about endocrine disruptors, and it made me think about quite a few things that I still use. I really like perfume. It's like, and I'm careful about the perfume that I buy, but I bet there's some in there that's not great. Is all my makeup completely clean? And then you wonder why you've got, you had a wonky thyroid, and I've done much to put it right. And Helen asked, what kettle do you suggest?
There is a company in the UK online that do a plastic-free kettle, but that was like £85. So in the end, I found a glass one on Amazon, which was like £20. So we'll see how long it lasts for. So I'm a bit reluctant to recommend it at the moment. I can see it now. It's a Kusori, and it's got no plastic in contact with the water. It's only got stainless steel or glass. So
I'm going to have to look at mine now.
Yeah, I know. Well, that was the thing. I hadn't really realized it was there.
Yeah.
So there's this kind of process in January of, you don't have to go and replace everything at once, but just take stock. Okay, that's something I need to get rid of
Mm.
at some point. When the bottle's finished, I'm going to make a bit more of an effort on that. But what
Yeah.
about, Caroline, what about past lives? Are they going to catch up with us? Our
Yeah,
past.
totally. I've for a long time I've thought about this. Like Fiona and I are both homeopaths. So what happens when someone comes to see us is we take a full case, and we go, particularly for hormones and for menopause, we go right back to the teenage years. Might also look at how our mothers were at menopause. And I really want to ask you this, Fiona. My experience of clients and their journey is that there isn't necessarily much of a link with if your menopause is going a certain way, that your mother, it's similar to your mother's. I just don't really see that link. I think we've had, most of us now who are going through menopause were born in a time, when I do the toxic timeline, we're born in a time where we already had in utero exposure to pesticides. Those are hormone disruptors. So we were born in a time with that disruption. And we were born into a time where chemicals and food coloring and very refined sugar was introduced into the food. So, I was born in 62, and I grew up in the late 60s and the early, that's when my hormones were kicking in like 1974. And at that point in time, we were introduced to all these chemicals, all these things which are hormone disruptors. And that's layered on top of the inheritance of our family. So I think our menopauses are really, really different. And although our mums didn't talk much about menopause, and it was taboo, and there were aspects of maybe not talking about women's stuff, or keeping your kind of health stuff to yourself, maybe discussing it with your doctor, but likely not, because women's stuff doesn't get discussed. So there's a whole different kind of narrative around talking about menopause. And that generation did come from a time when they were exposed to less as children, but the 1930s to 40s was actually quite a lot of exposure. It's when we first introduced antibiotics. It's when we first introduced fridges and stopped fermenting our food, for instance. So there was a time in the 1930s. We also changed the kind of drugs that we have. So up until 1910, we were using things like mercury and all sorts of things in medication, but we started to really impact medication in 1910 to 1940, when we introduced things like arsenic-based preparations. So that's what our grandparents were doing. That's what our mums were exposed to when they were young. But our generation has so much more exposure to toxins. And I know I've kind of gone around the houses there, but I remember listening to an article about how cocaine leaves a certain residue in the liver, which, as far as the medics are concerned, or those that have studied it are concerned, cannot be shifted. And I was like, really? Wow. I went and had a look at that. I don't know what this chemical is. I need to go and research it a bit more. But that article stuck with me, because we really don't talk about things like recreational drugs, and all the rubbish that goes into those, never mind bad intentions, and an awful lot of people where I live, in my, kind of come from an art media background. I mean, cocaine was rife at the BBC, it's like this, we need to own what we've been doing and do something about it at menopause. So cocaine wasn't my drug of choice, but I was a poor art student. But my point is that we need these things come back, and kind of come back to grab us a bit at menopause. So it could have been we've had long courses of medication in our life, or we've had poor diet in our life. These are the things that will come back and grab us at menopause, and we need to think about correcting in some way. To how can I let go of that? So I got into doing proper cleanses, but the cleanses that I'd previously tried to do, I would get very my blood sugar would go really imbalanced. And so I would, about 3 or 4 days in, I'd just feel like death and just couldn't get over basically blood sugar imbalance. So once I'd learned to balance my blood sugar with particularly with superfoods and amino acids, that meant I could do a proper cleanse and I could let go of some of the junk that was basically causing my insomnia, my hot flushes, and also aches and pains, because the liver as an organ in Chinese medicine terms looks after the tendons and ligaments. So if you're finding in menopause that you've got, tight tendons, or you're pulling ligaments, you've got inflammation, or you've got joint pain, we would bring that back to the liver and say, let's look after the liver, and then we see the rest of the body improve. So when I'm on a cleanse, my yoga teacher adjusts me and says, wow, what are you doing? Your body's much more flexible. And I'm like, oof, maybe I should be doing this cleanse stuff a bit more of the time, because that feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I totally agree with you. And I think the other thing that we don't talk about, that isn't talked about, is all the artificial hormones that we've taken ourselves, and our mothers took, and our mothers and our grandmothers even, the drugs that they prescribed for miscarriage. So your mother could have would have just been handed a pill by the doctor, probably wouldn't have asked what that was, incredibly strong and caused, generational problems around even the shape of the womb, ovarian cancers. And the legacy of that. So, if your mother is still around, and you can ask if she ever took anything before you were born, that would have been in her system when you were conceived. And we know that it passes genetically down. So we've got that, but we've got in our lifetime, it was very normal for girls to be put on, any girl with the slightest problem around about their periods. In my generation, growing up in Scotland,
Totally.
had this thing where you could, I don't know how it is today, you could self-refer, the Brook Clinic, you could go, everyone was like, oh, badge of honor, go and get yourself on the pill. And no one really knew, there were condoms, but no one really knew about any other form of contraceptive that was going to be safe. And we see that, I'll see that in things like far more today's the younger they're getting IUDs fitted, have a much broader range of contraceptives available to them. So, and I think that's why I treat far more menstrual issues than were around in the past, because they were all masked by us all taking the pill. I mean, I didn't really take the pill, it never really worked for me, but my friends did. So, and that was the 80s and the 90s. And now as we come to menopause, I wonder why our hormones aren't balancing in a very tricky phase. And then you've got people with 30 years of contraceptive use. So clearing that out is a really big part of a healing round about menopause. It's not something you can particularly do yourself, so you would need to do it with a homeopath. But as far as I know, homeopaths are the only people that offer a way of clearing out those hormones that we've been exposed to, particularly the ones that we've been exposed to in our lifetime. So
and I think it's very specific, isn't it? Like I ask many women, how is were obviously part of case taking would be how, did you take the pill? Often we don't know which one we took. So when you were talking about the kind of medication that perhaps even our grandmothers and our mothers might have been on for problems in pregnancy, or to try to prevent problems, hyperemesis, try to prevent sickness, this kind of thing in pregnancy, nobody would really come through and say, yes, I took diethyl stilbestrol. They wouldn't know that was the drug they took, and that has insidious consequences, multi-generational issues. And this is also what we see with pesticides. So can we clear this stuff from our bodies? Homeopaths get very specific about this. And I'd love to talk to some herbalists who kind of maybe work in that kind of way, because and so much more studies need to be done, don't they?
Yeah, I know. the more I research into menopause, the more astonished I am by what is not there. There is, and the ongoing research is very weak. You're looking, there's a big study that happens in America called the Swan study, and they've just worked out that if you have hot flashes before your periods have stopped, then that is very likely to be a blood sugar issue. It's a very good, you're getting a good sense that you're going to a pre-diabetic state. So anybody who's on this call who's having hot flashes before your periods have stopped, your blood sugar is going to be key to that.
Yeah.
And post, when your periods have stopped, you're in a different stage and your hot flashes there are much more to do with your menopausal transition. But I mean, that is like, couldn't somebody have worked that out? We've been able to test blood sugar for how many years, and nobody thought to break that down. There's been no breakdown of women in perimenopause and postmenopause when they've been doing research. It's, until recently, it's just so difficult to pick your way through. And the research that's been done in the past is kind of useless because they didn't look at things like that.
Absolutely. And if you crave carbs, or sugar before your period, that's an indication that your blood sugar's imbalanced, and it's really not rocket science, and yet it hasn't really been studied.
Yeah, no, something else that I was reading yesterday actually was the impact of blue light on your blood sugar. So I think we're all becoming aware of, before you go to bed, cut out your screens. But now there is a proven blue link between blue light from screens directly impacting your FSH, which is your follicle stimulating hormone. So, and that has a direct impact on your menopause. So they're now starting to see spikes in estrogen from blue light. So another part of this detox for us all is changing your screen settings, making sure you've got sunrise mode set on your screen so that your screen automatically changes. You can also do a thing where you just make your screen orange the entire time, and that removes the blue light even during the day, because you probably get enough blue light from your outside world anyway. Do we need extra? So something like that, that's just emerging. And I'm wondering whether blue light is going to, in a few years' time, suddenly be like, oh my God, we exposed our kids to it. We've taken up so much of it. So it's another thing that I think we're going to start seeing coming through, because we know it disrupts our melatonin, which has an effect on our sex hormones. It disrupts our sleep, which has an effect on our sex hormones. So that piece of information is out there, but these newer studies are coming out now. So that's another really simple thing to do in January as a little bit of a detox.
Yeah, it is. And also, I mean, I've listened to that that documentary about, the skies changing, and that's had me thinking as well. But we do live in darker times than we did in the 1960s. That's measurable, and so one of the things that I love talking about is the bit on the course, when we talk about how to manage that, how to work with light throughout your day. And it's Amber's just put that in the comment, never thought about blue light. It's so interesting. And Wi-Fi, they haven't really published much of this. It's hard to find, certainly just from doing a Google search. But they did the studies on bees with 5G, and it disrupts your blood sugar levels. It disrupts your lipid levels, that's your fat levels in your blood. And it disrupts the way that we metabolize protein. What problems have we got in the world today? We've got diabetes, disrupted blood sugar. We've got cholesterol problems, that's disrupted lipids in the blood. And we've got thyroids, which are not functioning. What does the thyroid do? It governs the way that we metabolize protein. We're made of protein, 90% different types of protein. And I love talking about protein, because it's like when we look at protein, for instance, as an element, it comes in many different forms, and some of those types of protein are smooth, and that's the hair, the nails, the skin have smoother types of protein. Other types of protein fold, and they fold in on themselves, and they unfold, and they reshape. It's absolutely fascinating when you think about that on the wider scale as well, of where we fold in on ourselves, for instance, or we unfold in the world, as we become more open to things. So it's fascinating. Jack Cruz on blue light, mind-blowing. Yes. There's definitely some new stuff coming out about all of this, and we both love researching and doing all that, don't we?
Yeah. So when we do the course, we update it every time we do it, because we've done it twice so far. So we are third time round, and we're going to be updating things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just thinking, one more thing that I'm going to do for detoxing in January is around, because stress is a form of toxicity. So, and when we think about, well, when I think about my stressors, I've got things that, you know, inadvertently happen and stress me out, but then there's also stuff that I can do. And I've really noticed that I've developed a little bit of a Christmas holiday addiction to social media. But I'm using it before I go to bed. And what I'm doing is I'm getting a lot of really negative, there's a lot of negative dark news out there, which I'm sure there always is. But, you know, I'm just aware that I'm giving myself deliberately somehow cortisol spikes. And each time I get a spike of cortisol, cortisol and progesterone are made from the same stuff. But cortisol is more important because it keeps you alive. So your body will nick your progesterone. It will basically hijack the ingredients for your progesterone to make cortisol. Progesterone is the stuff that makes us feel good. It makes us feel relaxed. It makes it, you know, it's a lovely warm feeling. And there I am replacing it with cortisol. So really, I think when one is looking at a January detox, it doesn't just have to be foods and your environment and actual visible or, you know, inadvertent toxins, but also those emotional stresses. Are you watching some Scandinavian dark thriller before you go to bed? Can you switch that to something that's
I'm just wearing the jumper.
Yeah, Scandi murder jumper. Can you switch it to something that is a bit gentler and a bit easier? Because that will actually have an impact on your health, which is, you know, quite an astonishing thing, that you can improve your menopause symptoms by either bringing your, you know, scary news reading to the start of your day, where your body's much more able to deal with their cortisol
I have to say that's when I do it.
Is that when you do yours in the morning?
You just froze a bit there, Fiona.
Yeah,
hopefully
so
you'll be back.
See, am I
Let's
back?
just check in with you. I'm gonna. It says my internet's connection's unstable. Did you just froze a bit there? Don't know whose that was. I'm plugged into the Ethernet.
So anyway, detox can be a more holistic look at what are you listening to? What music are you listening to? Are you constantly listening to music in your headphones or podcasts? Have you got kind of constant inputs? Because that's quite stressful for the body. What's happening with the lights in your house? You know, can you get a few candles going? All of that is a detox as well, because you're taking a stressor out of your life. So I just encourage everybody to think about that as well. And what are you doing what's your detox plan?
I started on Saturday, so I've still not quite got my head around where we are. What is it? It's Tuesday, isn't it, at the moment? So I'm on day 4 of a 10-day cleanse, which I do every year at this time. And I just really love the immersion. So there's a whole load of food groups that I don't eat for those 10 days, and food groups that I welcome in, some of which I do a lot of the time anyway. But it's really focused on superfoods, and it is all vegan. It's no genetically modified. I don't eat this stuff generally anyway, but I do eat meat. I eat. I am an omnivore, and I eat a little bit of fish, not a lot, because I think fish is quite a trial these days. So going vegan for 10 days is not a problem for me. I like food, but it's very, very simple. And all the foods that I do eat on this have an action of something like hydrating the bowel, or supporting, say, for instance, celery is supporting bones efficiently. Avocados for a bit of fats, but it's the vast majority of it is superfoods. I do something every 2 hours, and it's got amino acids in it which help stabilize my blood sugar, and that, as I've said earlier, is a key thing for me. And it will be interesting, just looking at, so blood sugar. Are you hydrating enough? We talk about hydration on the course as well. We look at, you know, water filtration and all that kind of stuff, and getting the toxins out of our water. But I have a client who I am really struggling to get to drink water at the moment. She goes into hospital with arterial fibrillation, so her heartbeat speeding up every time. It's because she's not hydrating. I mean, she drinks Diet Coke and barely drinks water. And I cannot tell you how dehydrated she is. And you'd think that that would make you withered and small. And she's the exact opposite of that. And when she hydrates, when she does do it, she tells me her energy raises and her blood sugar stabilizes. You know, sometimes it's as simple as that. Are we hydrating enough? You know, so often on this cleanse, I have to remind myself, am I having those big glasses of water, filtered water that you're meant to have on cleanse? You know, and I absolutely love it. It's a really quiet time of year to be doing something like this. You know, the Celts didn't wake up until Imbolc, which is a few weeks from now. You know, we're supposed to be in this kind of pause at the moment, just kind of contemplating and resting a bit, and not racing to get the year kind of super fast started, you know. So yeah, what sounds destructive, Helen? I was curious about.
I think maybe the Diet Coke drinking.
Or the Diet Coke, yes, terrible.
That sounds like a
but then, you know, there's all sorts of, I mean, even drinking Coke actually would be better than Diet Coke. And you know, again, there's reasons for that. That might come as a surprise, but Diet Coke's got something nasty in it. You know, if you're using artificial sweeteners, that would be the first thing to get out of our diet in terms of detox. You know, so many little kind of nuances. I will say though that detox is something that you know, do a little bit, see what the change is, do a bit more, see what the change is, you know. So if you're not filtering your water, filter your water and find out how that feels, you know, to have water that tastes clean. Don't use a Brita filter, because I don't know why their water just tastes rubbish. There's one that we recommend, isn't it? The Picture Pro is the one we recommend. But you know, there's so much that we can do, but do something, observe, do the next thing, observe. Yeah, amazing.
That kind of gentler approach to it, not shocking the body, not spiking your cortisol by going hungry or depriving yourself.
Really important.
I'm going to cut out excess sugar and alcohol after Christmas, and I'm going to set that up for success by making sure that at that 4 o'clock time, when I was eating a massive bit of Christmas cake and possibly a mince pie, I'm now going to have something. So I'm going to make myself some protein balls, something that is a treat. I'm going to get a new range of herbal tea. So I've got something that I have as a treat at that time, because otherwise, if it's just the depriving, there's nothing in that for you, and it's very difficult to sustain. And it sounds
exactly. I've got a friend doing a fruit fast at the moment. He's still posting on Instagram, and I'm like, it's so not right for him. You know, he's tall, he's quite lean. You know, doing a fruit fast for as long as he's planning to do it stands to exhaust himself. You know, it's like we need to understand nutrients, and fruit is amazing. It's amazingly nutritious, but it is sweet. You know, and if you're continually pushing yourself into that, it's yeah.
And at menopause, one of the things that we cover quite extensively on the course is not around removing foods, but it's how to eat. It's how to eat for this life stage, so that you're nourished, so that you're well resourced, so that you don't get affected by external stresses, so that your blood sugar stays nice and stable, and all of that knocks on to having far fewer menopausal symptoms.
And I often say we're very good as women of, you know, taking things out of our life, but actually there's so much that is important to add in to our lives at menopause, in order to achieve balance, you know, and to welcome in. And it might be something as simple as getting magnesium into your life regularly. What we like to talk about on the course is not just that, but here's why, you know, and why that is particular to you as well, you know. So I was just thinking about cravings before periods, and I used to crave chocolate. You know, I now know that's a surefire sign that I needed magnesium. When I look back at my life and what might have depleted my magnesium, and I understand that, I'm like, that is an important element for me. And so it needs to be there in order to keep not just my blood sugar balanced, but my bones strong, and to help my liver in terms of its function and my heart in terms of its function. You know, there's so much weight at the moment talking about synthetic hormones, so HRT, and how that's going to save your brain, or how that's going to save your heart, how that's going to look after your bones. And there's so many things we can do in the natural world, you know, from simple, gentle stuff like homeopathy, right up to you taking some really specific, targeted supplements if bones are weak, for instance, in our family, or we've got an issue. It's just so much. And I think what we are aiming for, you know, on the natural menopause course is something that is right for you. Because the other thing that I see is there's a vast array of things out there, and I'm constantly getting asked, is this right for me? Is this right for me? With absolutely no kind of relevance to the person in front of me, you know. And so that's why we try to create something that's more tailor-made, you know, more bespoke for you on your journey, because we're all completely individual. You know, we all have a different timeline, a different story.
Yeah, and I think that this attitude that we have of take, or that's prevalent of, you know, take one pill, take this supplement and everything's going to be
Yeah,
perfect. Like, really, menopause is an opportunity to learn how to live in it's a transitional phase you go through, so that when you come out the other side and you've worked with your symptoms, that you know how to live for the next 30 years. You know what works for
yeah,
you. You know how to eat, you know how to exercise, you know what is stressing you. Because when you start to detox, you can actually start to really feel what is negative for you. Once your system's clean, it's a lot easier. You know, when you eat that bit of gluten, if you haven't eaten gluten for a few weeks, you'll be like, oh God, that really affected me. So when you've got a nice clean
yeah.
system, you can really feel what's going on. And
Mm,
that is why, you know, we always start the course with a detox. Carolyn, have you
mm.
got some slides on? Should we talk a bit
Yes,
about
I have. And I was just thinking about the importance of community, you know, how when it was on the last course, I can't remember what I was doing, but I I was reminded that I needed to go back and add that in, you know. So so yeah, you know, these are, we set ourselves up, and then we, you know, we might need reminding, and that's the value of community, you know, that I'm just going to let someone into the call, that being in community really helps as well, you know, that we might need reminding, oh, you did well when you were on that, or have you tried this, you know, aspect. So that's something that I've grown to really appreciate. And I've always thought, you know, I'm not meant to be working in this space on my own. I don't know how you feel about that, Fiona, but I just think there is so many women that need support.
Yeah. And also, I think working, you know, there's the community of women who want to try and have a natural menopause is kind of fragmented. So it's really
Yeah,
great. One of the things about working with a group of women on the course is that you get to be with, you're talking to like-minded people.
yeah.
And we've had people actually, you know, go off and meet each other, have coffees, actually become
Oh,
friends.
that's gorgeous. Yeah,
As well as when somebody asks, you know, a particular issue. I remember in the September course, one of the issues that really everybody got on board with was dry mouth, and it
oh,
became
yeah,
that, you know, there was so much sharing and learning around one person raising their symptoms. So you really get, there's an awful lot of benefit to being on in a group when you're looking at menopause, because otherwise I feel it can feel quite isolating. You're a bit alone with it. You're the only
yeah,
person you know that's kind of wants to try and do it a different way, and it feels, you know, that their body can do it. So I love
yeah.
the group community part of things.
Oh,
So
sorry. Let me
the
just
course is
flip back
coming
to
up
that.
in we're doing the course again in February, and we take a small group of women, and we've developed a series of protocols which are really pretty simple and easy to follow. And each week we have a webinar on a topic, and then we all meet up live and do some workshopping together, and look at the issue of the week. And that's actually new. We've changed the format of the course because we decided that the participants really appreciated their time with us. So we wanted to actually increase the kind of mentoring time with Caroline and myself. So we've actually factored in much more of that in this course. So we start off with a detox, which is a liver detox, and guide you through detoxing your home and your life and your detox organs. And then we bring in homeopathic remedies that we've created these beautiful combinations, that we work through different homeopathic remedies as we go through the course. And the homeopathic remedies tie in with the information, which tie in with our curated nutritional supplements protocol. So the whole thing builds as you go through, and you go through steps in a very certain order. And then we have a WhatsApp group, which is live every day. So there's access to us every day for support. And yeah, we're really trying to, I personally find that with menopause, I'm working with women one-on-one, and that's not enough. I don't get to support enough women. And this course really is a way to work with a group of women at once and to, to spread and share the information that we hold.
Yeah, that's lovely. Rebecca just asked, would it work to do the course from Germany? Yes, it's online, obviously, and absolutely, because Germany's only an hour time difference. We were so surprised the first time we ran the course that we had a third of all the attendants were from America and Canada, and we hadn't expected that. And also another third were practitioners who said, I'm going through the menopause myself and I want to do the course, but I also want to learn for my clients. And so it feels like an even more inclusive space for me when I look at those kind of what's the word, demographics. So yeah, Fiona's just popped the link to the course actually in the chat, and we are, for the next 72 hours, we're offering a £50 discount for people who've attended this talk tonight, and there would be quite a few people, I think, who are watching it on catch up. So if you're watching it on catch up, you're included. But you can either use the link that Fiona's put into the chat that we'll share in obviously any communication. But also, if you go to the link, you've already got the link for the course, you can just use YouGoGirl50 to get a £50 discount. So that's for 72 hours from today. And Susie, yeah, what we want is practitioners to engage, because there are millions of women in the world who need support, who are seeking for support and not getting it. I'm not getting information that feels resonant to them, yeah, it's we need, the world needs us, basically. Not just me and Fiona, but us. So we wanted to say, because we get asked this a lot, just state really that the course is for you if you're in perimenopause particularly. So that's the whole time up to when your periods stop, which is a year of no periods. And that can be, usually it's from 4 to 10 years. For me, it was 10 years of symptoms, some subtle, some noisy. It's a period of time where lots can be happening, and lots of women in pre-menopause are asking, what's it going to be like? How can I prepare? Is there something I can do to prepare? And that's really, really warmed my heart and surprised me. How many women are coming forward saying, I've got this health condition. Is there something that I could be doing now to make menopause easier? And I absolutely love having women who are curious about the changes ahead and want to do something about it. Because for me, I was scared, I was edgy. There were things that I quite like not to do anymore, but I joked about them. you know, and then when I got to post-menopause, I was like, yeah, I do actually quite like a bit more time on my own, being less hassled, you know. For instance, we talk about all that on the course, but definitely if you're post-menopause and still have symptoms, any symptoms that you think I'm hanging over from menopause, so hot flushes, poor sleep, certainly things like achy bones, you know, we give so much advice and information around all that kind of thing and help you create a plan, you know, so I, you know, like what I meant earlier is I have a plan. It will evolve, you know, in 10 years' time, I expect to be taking different things, to be using different things. You know, I've just been decorating, as I'm still decorating, but I'm immersed in decorating. But I was up the ladder thinking the last time I painted this ceiling was 32 years ago. That's done very well. It's just had a repaint. And the last time I painted the walls in this particular room was 16 years ago. And I was standing on the ladder thinking, at 78, I'm not going to be standing on a ladder painting a wall. I might be, but I'm probably not going to be at 78. And I was like, wow, I wonder how life is going to feel then. You know, I'm going to have a different plan in place. There's lots of things that I'm doing now that I'm going to still be doing. But there will likely to be other things. I might need to look after my brain in a different way. You know, this is the kind of thing that we explain and talk about. This time in our life we can put things in place. You know, today I did a post about feet, you know, looking after our feet in menopause, because we need to walk forward into the next 30 years, 40 years. How long are we going to live? You know, feet at menopause can really change. What are we going to do about it? So if you can't take HRT, or you want to come off HRT, and you're looking for a natural menopause journey, the course is great. We've had women taking HRT on the course and wanting to come off, women taking HRT and wanting to optimize their health. You know, so we can do this alongside other health choices. And we like to work with women who've had surgical or chemical menopause. Now that can be tricky. Surgical menopause means that you'll be plunged into post-menopause really quickly, and that is not being acknowledged or supported by the mainstream medicine at all. You know, you're not given a plan of how to manage things when you're suddenly exhausted, hot flushes, etc. You know, that happens fast, and sometimes that happens after trauma as well. That menopause has a sudden onset, and it just takes you, you know, by surprise, and can be absolutely huge. So there's so much you can do in the natural menopause space.
So we're starting on the 25th of February, and we've got 6 weeks. The sessions, the live sessions, are from 7 to 8:30 every Tuesday, and then the next morning, you get your weekly webinar for the week ahead sent out to you, and a workbook that goes with the webinar. So you have a week then to sort of work through that. There'll be lifestyle hacks, things to try out. There'll be there's spaces in the workbook to go and record notes, to make notes of the changes you want to make. So the workbook really accompanies everything that you've got going on in the webinar. And then you come back to the live session where together we work through that week, find out what's worked for you, what hasn't, work with the group around about how to implement the changes that you know you have enjoyed and that fit with your lifestyle. Because what we're trying to do is not just impart information to you and then disappear off into the night. We're trying to encourage you to implement lifestyle changes and get into the habit of taking specific supplements, and start to tune into your body's symptoms. And then when you come to the end of the 6 weeks, you're then able to go off on your own and keep that going with a new awareness of your body and a new understanding of what works for you specifically. So it's really, although it's a menopause course, it is really teaching you how to live well for the, you know, remaining that sort of third part of your life as well. And we cover, there's a lot that we cover in the course. We've got some of it summarized on this slide, but yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing I think I just wanted to add is relevant signposting. So there's a lot of that we talked about with say burning mouth syndrome, which is quiet, or dry mouth, which is not necessarily. I think we don't have the stats on it. It could be a much more common symptom than we realize. It's not necessarily recognized as a menopause symptom, but it certainly is there amongst symptoms. So relevant signposting could be, for instance, going to an oral health person or a dentist with specialities in menopause. I've just interviewed somebody actually. Oh, some really good messages here as well. I just wanted to respond to Susie. Yes, there is a payment plan as part of the Book It Be booking page. If that doesn't work for you, or you can't see it, or it's not the right pace for you, just drop me a line and I'll have a look at that with you. Helen, we don't have dates for the next course yet after February, but there will be one. And Sarah, I'm going to message you privately about your message, just saying, I can't afford it. Let's talk about that. Let's see if I can help you in some way. A lot of people have looked at that previously with a payment plan. How many hours is the course in terms of online Zooms, please? The Zooms will be around an hour a week. So you'll need to find an hour to watch those. I always think great if you've got 2 hours, that you can try and diarize that time, perhaps to watch because those are catch up. You can watch them whenever you want, the webinars. We'll also record the lives. So if you can't attend a live on a Tuesday for some reason, those will get recorded and shared as well.
Yeah, so it's an hour and a half live and an hour webinar every week. So
yeah,
a lot. But the live session is going to be really interactive, lots of chatting. You get to talk yourself and explore things with other group members and have access to us as well. So there's lots there. So
and a great question here saying I've had breast cancer. Are homeopathic remedies okay to take? I know my oncologist wants to know what supplements I take so she can check. That's absolutely fine to know what's in things so that that can be checked, and that goes for the supplements as well. And absolutely, from my perspective, yes, but it would be good to get specifics. So before the course, we have a questionnaire, and we ask you to fill that in as part of the beginning of the course. So any kind of health specifics we cover, and that's just something to mention about. Just to come back to detox, somebody asked me about detoxing with an irregular thyroid pattern, and I was yes, but you need to have less of the purely green foods on the cleanse. So we're going to look at a slightly more diverse superfood shake to kind of cover that so that the thyroid's better supported. So specifics around health, really happy to help you with that. So I would say drop us a line and then part of that induction. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Fiona.
No, that all sounds good. I was just looking at the questions. There's one around, is raw mouth, roof of the mouth, a menopause symptom? So you see a lot of changes in the mouth. The mucous membranes in the mouth can get very sensitive and dried out. And also the bacteria, your microbiome in the mouth changes. So it's really, taking care of that. You can try something like oil pulling, particularly with a gentler oil like sesame seed oil, might be helpful to soothe the inside of the mouth. And there's some lovely tinctures like myrrh or calendula, which may well be useful as a mouthwash.
Yeah.
And you can buy those from
changing toothpaste as well, going over to calendula toothpaste. We cover all of this in, later into the course, these kind of details, because we need to start with some generals, because there's so many things that are general to all of us, and that's where the detox cleanse it comes in, and then yes, when we get through the course, we get into some specifics, which might not be for everybody, but it might be a note to come back. I mean, this course, we've actually got somebody coming back from one of the previous courses because she said symptoms have changed. I need to refresh, you know. So yeah, there's opportunity to move through it, come back to it. That's a symptom of menopause, and you know, I feel like, you know, and I'm so fairly healthy. I went through pretty much all those 34 symptoms of menopause, even the burning mouth stuff or the oral changes in the mouth. So yeah, very interesting journey.
A lovely message from Julie, if she's still on, saying that she's going to share that with her clients. Thanks, Julie.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, great. So
I
we
think
will
for a bit,
you will all get the information about a link to the course and a link obviously to the discount code, and information about the course. And just drop us a line if you want to chat to either me or Fiona and you kind of unsure or thinking, is it right for me? Yeah, just ask. Oh, thank you, Carolyn.
Yes, and you've left your traumatic drama, which good. That's a great bit of self-care. Get the progesterone flowing.
I'm going to find my infrared sauna bag today because I spent yesterday evening painting walls to get ready for shelves. So I'm quite glad not to be doing that this evening.
Well, I am really, it starts today. That's it. It's the end of my being on Twitter at 10 o'clock at night. No more. So yeah, I'm going to go light a candle, I think, after this and kind of bring the light down a bit.
Oh, yeah,
Energizing.
nice.
We've just been
Yeah,
on a screen. So
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Dim the lights, light a candle, relax. That's where we all need to be. Thank you. Thank you so much for your messages as well. Really great.
Yeah, thank you all so much for coming and taking. And I really hope you get to the space to think about, you know, letting go, detoxing in January, because it's really worth it. It'll really serve you. You'll get to April and just think, I'm so glad I did that. So yeah, hopefully we gave you a little bit of inspiration.
Thank you. Thanks, Fiona, as well. Bye.
Bye, everyone.